Yes, please read from the treaty bodies. Please read from the treaty bodies. See, here I am cursor showing. The cursor I am showing over here. The cursor I am showing over here. Treaty bodies, which are in red in color. Clear voice. I will show you the way that you have to read. Treaty bodies have responsibility for monitoring and promoting compliance with a particular human rights treaty. Any such, they are only with the countries that are party to the treaty. Now you continue from there.
Human rights treaties have established strict monitoring bodies to provide the implementation of strict obligations by state parties. We have the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination monitors state parties compliance with ICERB, and we have the Human Rights Committee monitors state parties compliance with the ICCPR. We have the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights monitors state
Monitors state parties compliance with the ICESCR.
The Committee Against Torture monitors state parties compliance with the CAT.
Can you make it out? Can you continue? From CAT, here I am showing the cursor to you. I am showing the cursor to you so that you could know that where to start.
Conventions, the protection of rights, migrants, workers, and their families. The Committee on the Elimination of Discriminations Against Women monitors state parties compliance with the state. And the Committee on the Rights of the Child monitors state parties compliance with the CRS. Treaty bodies consider reports from state parties on their compliance with the treaty, and some treaty bodies can receive individual complaints of treaty bodies violations.
Yeah, that means these are the treaties among the states which they agreed. Suppose one of them is not follow, again the other party will go and approach to the Human Rights Commission, because it is a international. So International Human Rights Commission, the body there you have to submit it. So reporting obligations and monitoring, how it can be done. When you say that treaty bodies consider periodic report from the state parties about the measures that they have adapted to carry out their obligations under each treaty. When treaty bodies access report from the state parties, they may also consider information contained in the shadow reports. Of course, taking from the other reports as a shadow reports, are those submitted to the treaty bodies of the NGOs and national human rights institutions rather than the government. After considering the report, the treaty bodies make a recommendation, often called concluding comments or recommendations, on how the state party can improve its compliance with its treaty obligations. So individual complaints are concerned. Yes, an individual can be harassed and his human rights are violated. At that instance, some treaty bodies have additional power to receive and consider complaints from individuals who allege they are the victims of the human right violations by the particular state. The bodies with the power to hear individual complaints are, which are enumerated below. Number A, the Human Rights Committee, they will hear it. The Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, yes, they also can hear it. The Committee Against the Torture, and the last one is the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against the Women. A finding of the treaty bodies that a state party has violated persons' human rights and the treaty is not legal binding. I repeat, a finding of the treaty body that a state party has violated the person's human rights under the treaty is not legally binding. That means they are no more to the party, treaty. Because when they are following it, they are supposed to follow the norms of the treaty. If they did not follow it, means he will be no more the party to the treaty. So that is the reason they say is not legally binding. Individuals can only make complaints to the treaty bodies if they have exhausted all the domestic remedies and if the relevant state party has recognized the competence of the treaty body to hear the complaint. So whether the complaint is genuine or not, first and foremost, a person who is such a victim should have to exhaust the local remedies. When he could not get the remedy, at that instance, then he can approach to the human rights body. So here, by ratifying the ICERD and CAT and the first optional protocol to the ICCPR, Australia has recognized the competence of the Committee on the Elimination of the Racial Discrimination, the Committee Against the Torture, and the Human Rights Committee to hear individual complaints about the violation of the relevant treaty provisions. So the United Nations is currently considering the proposal to reform the treaty bodies and make reporting obligation easier for the states by establishing a single unified treaty body to monitor implementation of all the human rights treaties. In a practical way, it is not possible to one legislation because it cannot solve all the issues. So supplementaries are very much essential and the special legislations are very much essential. So here again we'll say committee representation. Who are the people, the committee representation in the UN treaty bodies? Then the UN treaty bodies are committees of experts in the relevant area who serves their personal capacity, not as a representative of the countries. Emeritus Professor Ivan Scherer and Elizabeth Evatt, a former Chief Justice of the Family Court of Australia, are two examples of recent Australian representatives. So the committee representatives also very important factor. I told you these representative for every 2 years they will be nominated. Other UN organs that do important human rights work include number one, UN High Commissioner for the Refugees. Number two, Commission on the Status of a Woman. 3, United Nations Development Fund for the Women, that is a UNIFEM. Next, United Nations Children's Fund, that is UNICEF. Then the last one is UNITES. These are the other committee representations, and where this protection for the international human rights will be resolved. So let us see the other aspect of it, because the total project is there. And did you download the human rights? See, read what is there on the screen.
Different intergovernmental bodies, international marriage,
Read. Read.
this electronic resource guide, often called the ERG, has been published online by the American Society of International Law, ICL, since 1997. Since then, it has been systematically updated and continuously expanded. Chapter format, the chapter format of the ERG is designed to be used by students, teachers, practitioners, and universities as self-guided tool of relevant, quality, up-to-date online resources covering important areas of international law. The ERG also serves as a ready-based teaching tool at graduate and undergraduate levels. The narrative format of the ERG is implemented by the EISIL, Electronic Information System for International Law, a free online database that organizes and provides links to the useful information on web resources from the full spectrum of international law. EISIL is subject to organized format, and expert provided content also enhances its potential as teaching tool.
So this is one of the block where it can guide the practitioners, scholars, students, those who are pursuing the international human rights. So they have given certain guidelines over here, small guidelines, small guidelines. Can you read introduction?
This chapter, we are attempting to provide the guide to ever expanding area of national rights law. The focus will be on the current sources available in this topic, partners.
Now you got it. Now you got it. Continue.
This chapter will report general themes on following research, Hence, this is a the scope of this chapter will encompass both primary and secondary sources, including documents from non-governmental organizations. The emphasis will be on English language materials, but the availability sources and the adoption is noted.
So what this chapter conveys exactly? If you happen to see it, it provides a guide to ever expanding area of the international human rights law. Because international human rights law is not just stagnant, it is infinitum, expanding. The focus will be on the electronic sources. Now, do you carry the notebook? 200 pages, 400 pages. You used to carry the ruled notebooks. Why you are not carrying the note? Because everything is now data-based. Everything should be on data-based. So that is the reason you could not make it out. So regardless of the format, this chapter will include general tips for doing research as well as for locating the necessary documents and materials also. For instance, if you know it, whether this principle is followed in the human rights law or not. Yes, we can go to the database and we'll see whether any such cases are involved. If so, what is the reason and where it is based, and we can easily make it out whether the person is the loser or the winner. So the scope of this chapter will encompass both the primary and secondary sources. I don't know, by this time, I need not to explain what is meant by the primary source. Anyone? What is meant by the primary source? If you know it, you tell me. If you don't know it, you say pass on. Because don't waste the time.
Stand, sorry, research that first-hand research.
The first type sort of information is primary sources. Like when you go for the research in the empirical research, what do you call? Empirical, spelling EMPHARECAL, research. So that is a primary source. If you take an interview also, face to face, it is the primary source. If you take a view of a judge, primary source. If you take the expert's opinion of a doctor, it's the primary source. Then what are the secondary source? Hurry up.
What I know is information that was obtained from the data that we collected.
The secondary sources are that information you can find in the form of your books. Of course, where you can use a general also you have a primary source. But data collection in the form of a books, digest, they are said to be the secondary sources. Now you need not worry about the tertiary sources because you have to give the pole dose. So here the secondary sources including the documents from non-governmental organization. Of course, he has concluded even the non-governmental organization documents also. The emphasis will be on the English language material. Of course, the most of the language spoken in world is